Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. Welcome to KIMEcast. Tony Mikla, Russ Dunning. So we had a great week last week. We went through our second process in the fellowship through our testing program through the fellowship. So a little bit about our fellowship process we're doing so everyone has an idea of what's going on. We believe that the fellowship process that we're operating at KIME is more of a 2-year period, and there's a lot of fellowships out there that are 1-year period in our space of physical therapy and sports medicine. But this is really kind of a full breadth of how you truly apply many sports medicine skills, from obviously your ability to engage with the patient, understand their needs, understand who the patient is, understand the sports that they're trying to get back to, understand the manual therapy techniques and the variety of different modality options and why you might choose them, et cetera. And then certainly the vast space of exercise progressions, what you would progress, why you'd progress it, how you'd regress it, how you'd accelerate it if necessary, all of the variables. So it's quite a large dive. And then, of course, what does it look like as far as communication with coaches, communication with doctors, communication with your peers and team members, communication with the patient, the parents? All of these things are all part of the process and part of our education process that is all really critical to the success, I think, as a sports medicine clinician. So the fellowship is designed to demonstrate that there's a mastery of those skills. And to learn that, especially in a young clinician, in a year is just not feasible. It doesn't seem to be realistic, and I don't think it's a fair expectation to have someone come out of school or even be in practice for a year or two, go through a year of work in this regard, and all of a sudden be at this level. So for us, it's more of a 2-year process, and it's been tremendous. So we've had Evan a couple weeks ago. We took him through the final test, which is an extensive, basically battery by Russ and myself, where they present a case, and then we dive really, really deep through the case. There's 4 cases they present on a variety of different specific issues they have to present on. And then we ask significant amount of questions, thought process, the whys, the hows. What did they do it? Why would they do it? Would they do it the same now than they did at the time? Would it change? What if the patient presented in this way? Would it change? So it's really, really a good process. So then anyway, I was really impressed with Nico Contos. Nico completed the fellowship on Friday, and it was great to see him go through it. I did a fantastic job. So congrats to Nico on being our second fellow to move on to the next step. But I think as we've done this, what I wanted to talk about here is it's become really, really evident in working with some of these folks that have gone through this type of training and have changed their mindset and the way that they're approaching, patient care, people, and relationships in general. And it's become really evident to me over these last few weeks of meeting with them and taking this deep dive that there's an attitude and a perception that is they're going to get things done. Right? We've talked about this in the past. You brought this up a little bit ago about the idea of like founder mode versus like corporate CEO or venture capital mode. And this idea that we see presented by these folks that really have a mastery or a grasp of not only this concept, but other concepts, but there's really I'm going to get it done and I'll do whatever it takes kind of an approach versus, I'm going to try my best type of an approach. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm doing everything I can do. I'm doing my best. And the question is, but is that moving the needle, right? Is that really moving forward, or are you just doing your best, which it may not be good enough? Are you actually moving the needle? Are we actually seeing things change? Are we getting things done? And I think it's just you can see it completely differently in the person's confidence level, the way they approach, obviously, this situation in the fellowship, but as well how they approach each patient, how they approach problems in the community when they're trying to solve. How do we actually help more people? How do we actually deliver this level of quality on a regular basis? It's really great to see their mindset and see them work through it.
The smarter systems and the people who are the most thoughtful in this space have clear benchmarks, have clear metrics. They have very clear delineations of a separation of phases. Hey, we're going to get through this phase. We're going to improve movement. We're going to improve motor control. We're going to enhance stability. And now that doesn't mean that their programming is only a stability programming. I think a good programmer in this space is doing maybe 2, 3, or 4 things at the same time, but they are pushing the person hard in a particular bucket, and they have an idea of where they need to be. And when they've met that that when they've filled that bucket, so to speak, then they move on and push their priorities somewhere else, but they have very clear benchmarks of success. And without that clarity, you kind of get lost in programming zone of always doing a handful of exercises and being a cheerleader for your person and not really quite sure how fast are they moving, but they'll get there when they get there. We'll see how this goes. Let's try this. There's certain phrases that are kind of like very poignant that say, oh, you do not have clarity. When someone says, let's see how this goes. Let's try this. How about you let me know how we're doing? All these very, very gray responses are not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is clarity of thought. We're going to go and do this. We're going to improve this. Did you do your homework to achieve this? And with that focus, people always do their homework. That's why they're coming, because they need that clarity of path.
It changes the whole equation. And I think that's exactly it. Whenever I'm talking with someone like, well, we'll give it a shot, or we'll try this. Be like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Get it done. And I assume that in the process of you getting it done, you will try different things and you will evaluate the situation and you will figure out that, okay, well, we're going to solve this problem. My first approach didn't work. So now I'm moving on to the second thing right away. You don't need to tell me about it. Yeah. I just want it done.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the same concept when you're working with, even one-on-one with a patient. Hey, we are going to get this better. Great. Let's do it. Right. It's very clear. How are we going to do it? Well, that we're going to have to figure it out as we go. This is my plan, so let's go execute. And then based on that execution and the results, you then either modify the plan slightly or you double down on the plan and continue to move forward. But either way, that's built into it. But the attitude from the beginning has to be, we're going to get this done. We're going to fix this. We're going to make a difference. We're going to make a change. Not, we'll see how it goes, and I'll let you know what's up.
Yeah, and I think that the human part of this is we do make mistakes, and so understand you're going to need to pivot. But if you're going to make a pivot and go a different direction, you need to be clear. We're going to do this, and if this fails, and you can say this in your head or you can be transparent about it. But if this fails, then I will do this instead, and we'll get there. But you can't be wishy-washy. You can't say we're going to try all these 5 things at once, and eventually we might get there. It might take a really long time. No, that's a lack of clarity. We have to stand for something. You have to stand for your education. You have to stand for all the hours that you've spent reading and studying and learning. And this is why we've found great clarity with good instruments. So instruments like a handheld dynamometer, instruments like a force platform, instruments like our phones and judging an inclinometer and using like how much can your arm move and how much can your spine move. So having clarity of thought of how to judge movement, how to judge stability, how to judge stamina, how to judge power. And I recognize that, as we've done this, as you get, right now, one of the metrics we're looking at is a braking power, a braking impulse index. And we're starting to get in the weeds, and it's hard. It's hard to what's the impulse index? What's the area under the curve, normalized left to right? We're starting challenging ourselves here as we get deeper into physics and biomechanics. But that's what we get paid the big bucks to do. That's why the person needs us.
Coincidentally, that particular topic is going to come back up shortly for you. So that's going to be great.
Oh, great.
But I totally agree. I think the idea here is that it's okay if you don't know the answer. But what we find with people is the ability to commit to say, I'm going to get it done is what we're after. Not knowing the answer is okay, and it's expected. And I think even if you're one-on-one with patient care, we teach this in part of our programming. If you're one-on-one with a patient, you go through your whole evaluation of that day, of that situation, you learn as much as you can about the person and the time that you have. In our case, if you have an hour to go with this and do this interview, you hopefully will get down to it's either A or B, or it's close. I think it's A, but it might be B. There's an 80-20% or 70-30 or whatever. And obviously your experience makes you better at making that prediction. And sometimes it's 100% for sure it's this, right? But a lot of times it's not for sure it's that, especially the human body is very difficult to get someone's entire history in one day, in one session. Maybe they weren't fully transparent. Maybe you weren't able to get all the information in and ask the right questions, whatever it is. For me, when I wrap that session up, I'll tell the person, hey, I'm pretty sure it's this. And this is plan A, boom. If it's not plan A, we're going to know about that by the time I see you again, because it's either going to be better or it's not going to be better. So if it's not plan A, then it's going to be B, and B would be da-da-da-da. But it's one of those two. And I think that any human is okay with that type of communication.
Yeah.
What people are not okay with is like, well, I'm not sure. Let's try this and see what happens.
Yeah.
No one wants to be part of that exchange.
Yeah.
People want to say, we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm 80% certain plan A is going to get the job done for us. But if not, I do think it could be this. But everything I'm seeing today suggests that we should be in this camp and moving this direction. But let's do that together.
Yes.
And then if that doesn't work, we'll come back and revisit here.
And this is exactly why we have to be tissue experts. You know, when you're trying to delineate between a cartilage problem and a meniscus problem, that's very hard. They're very different. One's going to be very sensitive to impact. One's going to be more sensitive to shear. But they're both in the joint space, so they will create joint pain. When you're trying to distinguish between a fascial tear or a fascial strain and maybe more like a muscle tendon junction, also difficult because they're tender in the same spot. You're going to have a few sensitivities, but it's oftentimes if they're in acute pain syndrome, it's at that soft tissue level, a lot of tests might hurt. And so we can have a delineation of more soft tissue identity or more hard bony or joint tissue. We have ways of delineating. And we also have ways of delineating based off of how much threat it takes to bring on the pain. And it gives us an idea of severity, gives us an idea of perhaps the tissue involved or tissues involved. And we have this dance in our brain, and then how they progress kind of helps. Oh, we're definitely going in this direction versus nope, we need to pivot. We need to back and go here. And being, if you can communicate that well to someone, it does mean that you have found clarity with the path, albeit maybe 2 paths, but it's not 10.
Yeah, it's not 10. Yeah. And that's what determines your value. Like if I'm a person paying for something, I don't want to pay whatever the amount of money is, $100, $200, and have the person in front of me that I'm consulting with say, well, I'm not sure, let's try this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's appalling. Like, like I'm not coming back, right? But if I ask the question, hey, like, this is what's wrong with me, what should I do? And the person says, well, I'm almost certain it's this. This would be the plan, and I think this will be helpful. If not, if this does fail, then I think it could be this as a secondary option. But at least now I'm down to 2 things, and then there was value exchanged. So I think that's incredibly important. All right, on the next topic here, this. Russ, you're going to love this, I think. I'm not certain, but I think so. For you guys that don't know, Russ is at a point in his life right now where he talks to robots and really enjoys it.
I call him out too. I really love it when I say, I'm pretty sure you're wrong for these reasons. And if I can get AI to say, you're completely right, I forgot about that, I'm like, this is awesome. I'm arguing and I'm winning. Granted, it's not all the time, but occasionally I've won a few arguments, especially about like biomechanics and the nuances of movement. Like, oh no, you're wrong. It could be here. You are right. I didn't consider that. I'm like, that's a trip.
Okay, so I got this morning. This post was going around on LinkedIn, which is great. So the topic of the post is sports science's most uncomfortable truths. And this was a basically question posed to AI. So they put in the prompt to AI, what are some of the most uncomfortable truths about sports medicine? And there's 15 of these, right?
Wow.
So we did not brief Russ on what these were before, so we can get very authentic feedback here. All right. So the first is the most performance tests are practically useless.
Wow. By performance tests, like a mile run or like a counter movement jump or
Well, this is the best. So yeah, it's not specific, but that would be the concept, like a broad jump, 40-yard sprint, pro agility, 3-cone drill. But I think you could whittle this down to, as you were saying earlier, counter movement jump on a force plates or multi-rebound hop.
Yeah.
But then it says why, which I think is actually a good point.
Sports reactive and high IQ.
Well, no, it's what you do with the data, right? If your tests don't inform decisions, you're just collecting fancy numbers. Data without action is declaration.
Oh, the data is useless. Okay, what? All right.
Which is true. I think that there are people who are going out and collecting data and then giving it like a number to say like here's a quantitative measure. You're able to do this and this. Like a 40-yard sprint's a good example. Hey, you ran it in 4.4. Hey, was that good or bad? And then if it is bad, well, what do I do about it? Well, you actually need more data to determine what to do about it.
So I think this is a great concept because if someone were to jump 15 inches, right now that might be useless. And then what if I said, that's actually 95% in your cohort? You're about as ballistic as they get. let's do other things with your training. Let's maybe work on a little more touch. Versus the person who jumps 9 inches, you're in the 12th percent of your cohort. Yeah, you can do more touch work and more IQ work, but to be honest, I really think you need to do your performance training. So this is why I think we've obsessed with a percentile, because I think a percentile does create an action plan. Like the bucket is not filled. So I think to that point, I completely agree. I think
just the test without it being able to interpret the data is a problem. And it is just too much information. That's no doubt about it. But I think the thing too is if you use a test as like a measure for you, like normative wise, is their vertical jump, is it good or bad? And then to tell whether or not you should change their program would be, okay, it's bad for considering your sport and your age and your gender. But what part of the jump was bad? Like, why did you get a bad result? And then you dive into another level of depth.
Yes.
And then what their loading phase looked like, what their deceleration phase, what their impulse looked like, what their explosive power looked like might tell you.
Yes.
Because of that, we should change these specific plyometrics.
Yes. Do we do more strength work, more power work?
Yeah.
More speed reactive work.
More rebounding work.
Heavy decel work. And that's, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So then the next one, this one kind of gets me. Number 2, classic periodization's overrated. Real world training doesn't follow textbook models. Rigid plans fall when dealing with injuries, fatigue, and fixture congestion. Adaptability wins. Totally agree with that statement. The area I disagree is that I think that what we totally miss very, very consistently in athletic programming, with all people, with all humans, but certainly athletes, is that we miss the foundational development. And classic periodization is phenomenal for doing that. My experience has been that if we can load an athlete progressively over a period of time and get the foundational pieces to an acceptable level, depending on the sport, level of the athlete, what we're trying to do, et cetera, we set a foundation that then can tolerate all kinds of adaptability and all kinds of variation. However, people that are training just adaptability and basically training in chaos, if they don't have a good foundation underneath them, I do think their failure points are much more frequent.
Yes. Yeah. I don't love this one. Some of the best athletes I know are the football athletes of one of the best high schools in the country, and they will train in the weight room, aggressively strength training from January to March, and they build this ridiculously phenomenal base. Then they'll be very ballistic and powerful and chaotic from like May to July.
And they start that as a freshman.
Yes. And it's a rinse, repeat. And these bodies grow.
Yeah, I think high school is the last developmental frontier, right? So these guys are starting as 8th graders before they even go into high school, and then they're doing this for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
You're not even getting that at the D1 level anymore with people entering the portal and moving schools and transferring. There's tremendous inconsistency in the training when you do that.
Yeah, I think we delineate this naturally. Does someone have a good strength base? Are they strong enough, or do they weigh enough for their activity? And if they haven't, you do have to do more classic programming to build a body. Once the body is built, then I think chaos and conditioning win. So I think this is it's a weird one. It's like, well,
it's just, I think it's wrong. I think classic periodization is not overrated at all. But I think using it as an idea that you're going to maximize someone's power production in a multi-directional reactive sport, that I would agree with. That I think would be a poor understanding of using classic periodization. But I think if you used it in the off season of an athlete's development, where you took that 3 to 6 month off season, 6 months prior to competition, if during that time you're using classic periodization to build volume, build tolerance, build strength, build power, it's a phenomenal tool. And then you can layer in variations so that you can create opportunities for adaptability and such.
Yes.
But I think that because I've done this numerous times and being in the injury side of things, usually when we see an injury, especially like an advanced athlete, and it was a non-contact injury, it's usually a training error. And 9 times out of 10, I come to find out that the person doesn't have a foundational development program. They're either, hypermobile, hypomobile, not strong enough, overpowered, but something there was tremendously unbalanced. And in that process, it probably made them very susceptible to the injury.
Yeah.
And then that's where it happened. So
yeah, I completely agree. Well, I think as whether you're a sports scientist or a coach or a PT, if you're working with a super adapter and they have this incredible body without going through classic training, you can be fooled to think by doing chaotic things with a super adapter that you've helped create this beautiful specimen. In reality, some people grow whether they sprint uphill or they do lots of lunges and they just grow. And some people grow. And so you can't just make a basis out of the super adapters. You kind of have to look at the people that maybe struggle with growth, that are a little bit lower on the muscle line. And I always look at myself as an athlete, and many of us do, like, well, how did I develop athletically? I had to work freaking hard for my strength. I remember in the weight room being with lazier guys in the weight room, and their bodies would just bloom up to 200 pounds, same height. And there's me just climbing around at 155, pushing harder, trying to eat more. So, that this statement, I think many bodies, perhaps majority of us in the middle, have to do a little more classic periodization just to grow a body. And the super adapters, it's, you can do anything with them and they'll adapt. I don't think LeBron James had the world's best, strength, coach at the age of 13. I think it was a super adapter.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah. I think this is something to also take away is that depending on who your mentor is in the space, who you look up to in these kind of space of strength conditioning performance, if the person is dealing mostly with elite Division I or above athletes or professional athletes, usually they're well aware of this. But when they're usually well aware of their bias, that their job is really quite easy. The main job is to keep the people healthy, which is actually the hard part of the job. But building strength is not difficult for these people. That's half the reason why they're there. They're just genetically unbelievable adapters. And when you load their tissue, they just grow super fast. It's insane. Now, it's not 100% of the population at that level, but it's a good amount of them. So their job is much, much easier. They're not having to do classic periodization by any means because these people are coming in 3 times as strong as someone who's been doing classic periodization for 4 years.
Yes.
Just because it's how they are genetically. So here, this one I think you'll like. Strength doesn't guarantee performance.
Yeah, hands down.
Lifting 2 times body weight won't magically make you faster or more agile in the field. Strength is important, but sport-specific power application matters more.
Yeah, I mean, shot put people are strong. So, it's definitely wrestlers are strong. There's certain sports, linemen are strong.
Yes.
So there's I think it's a little specific. Tennis athletes, variable. Gymnasts, very interesting.
What's their style of play? Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree on how limited strength can be.
I think this concept probably comes from the idea that so many people believe that you have to squat or deadlift or Olympic lift to be a great athlete.
Yeah.
And there has been a lot of evidence to actually suggest that Olympic lifting and such is great for developing strength and power. I'll bring Chris Rounds on the podcast. Chris Rounds is the strength coach at University of Arizona with the basketball team. And I've talked to Chris many times. He's phenomenal. I want to bring him on to talk about his approach that he has with these athletes, these elite D1, NBA prospect level people. It's really counterintuitive to what everyone thinks is the thing to do. So it's really cool. But he was pretty adamant that there's actually not evidence that Olympic lifting is correlated to high performance at all. Yeah. So I want to bring him on and we can talk more about that. It's pretty cool.
It's super cool.
But this idea that, strength does not guarantee performance, for sure, agreed. I think there's many other variables that are more important. And this specifically says sport-specific power application.
I just had a pro athlete this morning. I noticed he had dropped 10 pounds, looks so much skinnier. I went over to him and said, "You look amazing out there, Chris. How fast do you feel?" He's like, "I feel unstoppable. I can do all these things with my body now." I'm like, "It's amazing how you've downgraded your strength, downgraded your muscle mass, didn't touch the weight room, just kind of got light and fast and ran and was happy. His body shrank, feels $1 million. He's not getting injured. He's like, I'm training all the time." This was an overpowered athlete. This was an athlete that had a stupid vertical. I've never seen anyone jump as high. And he had the biggest legs and the biggest back. And it was just he was just built very powerful. He was an Olympic level wrestler. And now that his body has shrunk, less strength, he's amazing. So it's
for strength to weight ratio is perfect though.
Yeah. And so that's a great concept that stronger is not always better because usually stronger comes at a cost. Is your body willing to pay that cost? Some people's joints don't like it. Too much strength. Great concept.
I think you like this one. Number 4, HRV isn't the ultimate recovery tool.
Oh, yeah. Well, 10 years ago, I read deep research in HRV to specifically variance can be measured in 26 different ways regarding the heart. Which frequency, which bandwidth, is it 3 days, is it 2 minutes? Like the how many ways you can get the idea of variance is incredibly complex. So whenever you have a simple wearable like your Garmin or your Apple Watch give you a quick little number, fat chance it is all that meaningful by itself. Now, Joel Jamieson will say that it's meaningful to the person. So if you get an idea of what their natural state is, then maybe you can get an idea if they're off, if they're up or they're down. Maybe it indicates they're sick or they're overstressed. But it's a super complicated measure. So I've gone away from it because it's like too nuanced.
It's a little bit nuanced. Yeah. So yeah, the comment is that though useful, sleep quality, hydration, and subjective fatigue tracking are probably more important. I just think it's a tool, as you said, right? It can be a piece of the story, a piece of the person's overall recovery programming. If you measured it regularly and consistently with the same device, the same person, it might be able to give you some value for sure. But you can also get this subjectively very, very easily.
Yeah.
In fact, most coaches, if they just watch their athlete, if you're actually training the athlete, just watching the athlete move, you can recognize like, oh, you're tired today.
Yeah.
You're not as explosive today. Your attention to detail is a little bit off.
Yeah.
Your body seems a bit fatigued. How do you feel? I'm tired. Like if they're honest with you, I'm tired, coach. My legs are tired. Great. Then, neurologically they're down, and HRVs probably would show you the same thing.
I think there's other readiness things that are perhaps a lot better, like you just said, maybe hydration and sleep, but also like their jump, their reactivity, their natural quickness, right to left. I think there's other things that, the best coaches out there, I think, are getting, hey, let's test you, let's do a quick jump, kind of see how your central nervous system is doing right now. I think those are smart.
Yeah. This one I think is great. Number 5, 90% of plyometric training is done wrong.
This is giving you an articulation of like
jumping without controlled ground contact time.
Oh, yeah.
Or having a structured progression isn't plyometrics. Just random bouncing. But it's true. I mean, it's true. People have such a poor understanding of how to maximize what we would call plyometrics, which is basically jumping. But you have to ask, like, what part of the jump are we trying to enhance?
Sure.
And where are we at in the season? And what is the athlete's strengths? All these variables.
I think, if you watch anyone do a jumping jack versus jump rope versus speed rope versus pogos, those are all like in the lower level jumping category, not high threatening on the body. And they're all very different skills. But I do think, this is where I love Pavel Tsatsouline. He'll say strength is a skill. But then he'll also say everything is a skill. So how you get good at anything without doing something? So when people are just jumping around, maybe it's a little chaotic without intention, but there's probably some learning going on. And this is where I love people saying, hey, do 5 rate jumping jacks. I just walk away. I come back. I don't really care how good you were jumping. Let's just get good at like light, easy jumping. And then for that person 2 weeks from now I can coach the pogo a lot better if they've been doing some kind of jump rope, jumping jack on a regular basis. Now I say, all right, now we're going to jump with purpose. And I give them that stiff jump. And I give them a box jump. So like, 90% of all plyometrics is done wrong. Yeah, okay. But is the person learning some basic skills that then allows you to have better intention and do it right? So.
Yeah, so I think that if you think about like a training cycle, right? I think this is true. Like everyone's done a box jump before. But very few people could probably tell you like what they're actually benefiting from and why they're doing a box jump.
Yeah.
And very few people a decent amount probably dropped off the box, but whether or not they've done a depth jump off the box at a proper intensity or with proper intervention is probably done. Is probably not done well. So I think people are jumping. To your point, I think that they're learning stuff, but I do think that it's not programmed well. Which I think that more recently we have the tools now to probably be better at this.
Yeah.
Like we can actually now understand the mechanics of the jumping and measure it at a level with the force plates that really allow us to make a much deeper assessment of like, what are you good at? What are you not good at? Some people are better at loading. Some people are better at accelerating. Some people are better at rebound. So that once you know what the person's good at, you can then either take advantage of that and train it a little bit more and get it a little bit more fine tuned, or you can decide and say, hey, let's work on some of your deficits and bring that level up. That's a debatable idea that's real.
So then I would like to nuance that because I do think AI completely got it wrong I'd love to battle it.
Yeah.
And say, no, they're not done wrong. They're done wrong for that person.
Right. Yeah.
That's, I think, the key thing is if you have 10 people jump and you coached up like, hey, we're going to do it right, probably only 2 people can actually supposed to even do this drill. The other 8 should be doing a regression.
Yes. They're probably not even strong enough to be there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to that, for sure.
Yeah. We don't use this one so much in our world, but number 6 here is GPS metrics often lead to misleading conclusions. So GPS metrics is using a group, Catapult's one of the groups. There's a couple other groups out there. Adidas has a program they use with the soccer guys. It's pretty awesome. They track these athletes while they're in practice and when they're in games. You can see, and if you watch the NCAA tournament, you can see some of the jerseys have this little monitor mounted to the back of them. Those are tracking devices where they're using it. So what the GPS will tell you is insane amounts of metrics. And the question is, do these metrics actually like make a difference?
I think it's the coolest thing because then you get top speed, bar none.
Yeah.
You catch them in a game. You get adrenaline plus them chasing.
Yeah.
Top speed.
Yes. And then you can see all kinds of trending things too. Like I remember one time I was working with Odell and they were looking at his stuff and how many times he cut right versus cut left. And the rate of speed at which he did it was quite different side to side. And the frequency was like 8-2. So it was like an 80% effort was going to the right every time versus going to the left. So there were these preferences that were seen in the movement patterns that you may not pick up unless you looked at the data. But I do think that they're right about this, misleading conclusions. We're definitely not at a point with whether it be force plate data or GPS data. The number of data points is so overwhelming that we're still, 10, 15 years after the popularity of these devices, I think challenging with what are we looking at? Why are we looking at it? Is it going to make a difference in the training? Does it really matter? So I think it can cause confusion for sure.
Well, we're leaning on a strong correlation of someone's vertical jump power and height and with their 10, 20, 30 meter sprint. And this is where, when we've done combines and testings and do speed testing, it's a big show. It's a big show. You're all racing. You're getting in time. Frankly, it's a lot of labor. It's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Whereas what I think would be great to move to is, give these wearables. I'm not sure how much they cost, but it'd be cool to just have the team do a wearable and everyone capture their top speed in the game. And then correlate that with their jump and see the people who are like, you're the top 3 jumpers. You're also the fastest out in the field. Or is there a miscalculation there? We got someone really fast but doesn't really have good vertical power. And maybe that might show us something. But I think it'd be fun to have that as an output, as a clear output of like, hey, we're doing this for speed. All right, let's have a good game. By the way, we'll capture your top speed and we'll see how well you improved in the last 3 months. That'd be fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think one of the statements below here is total distance and sprint numbers mean nothing without context. I think this is true. Tactical context, playing style, and decision-making matter more than the raw data. And I think this is absolutely true. Like having just the best athlete, like numbers-wise, is not what makes the team win by any means. Mm-hmm. So having the fastest 40 doesn't necessarily mean you should be a starter, or having the best pro agility or ability to change direction or RSI on a force plate situation shouldn't mean that you're then all of a sudden like the best player on the team or even on the team. Mm-hmm. There are so many unbelievable athletes out there that never make it in sports because they don't have the on-field decision-making skills, the ability to kind of work as a unit, understand timing. There's so many variables because there are plenty of folks out there that play at the most elite levels in sport that aren't the greatest athletes. They usually have a pretty decent athletic foundation. Mm-hmm. It's hard to make it and like not be good at all, but they can make it and not be as good as some other athlete. Mm-hmm. But they make up for it in their style of play, in their awareness of the court, and how they see the field, how they see the play, how they see working as a team.
Yeah, fascinating.
And this is great. So 7, exercise physiologists often live in a theoretical bubble. So many sports scientists love research, but fall to apply the real world settings. We just had this experience.
Yeah, I went to my old professor friend and love him. I think he stands for. I love academics in what they do. They push their body and mind and career to find difficult answers. But sometimes the answers are a little bit more interesting. The answer to him is, hey, I want to try and save ACL. So we're studying our impact on teams to see if our group can save some ACLs this year with the teams that we influence. And his report back to me is, we already know how to save ACLs. And I was kind of flabbergasted. Like I want to like scream and say, no, we don't. We don't know what influences a team and a coach and an athlete the most. If we did, then everyone would be saving the ACLs left and right. So we can say, improve hip strength, quad to hamstring, proprioceptive. If they do a strength base, if they do the FIFA 10 or the FIFA 11 plus, if the athlete works on spring on the court, we can say like, a lot of these things have shown to reduce ACLs, but we haven't learned how to save ACLs because they're still being torn at a higher rate than they were 20 years ago. So clearly we're not doing it. It's because when you tell someone to get your hip stronger, they don't do it. That's it. We tell an athlete, tell the whole team, hey, can you guys please get stronger? Doesn't happen. Why? All of it's because of psychology, how you reveal the data, what's the most important metric to move the needle, going back to classic programming. I mean, the answer is nuance of how to influence a life, not exactly your hamstring needs to get stronger and that's it.
Yeah, totally. The concept is we know the metrics, like we know the numbers, we know the data, we know like what exercises to do. The hard part is how do you implement that into the person's training program? How do you get the coach to allow time for it to happen? How do you get the person to buy in and do it with the right amount of effort that it actually makes a difference?
Yeah.
These are huge variables that, yes, we know what movements to do, but to get the person to actually do it, participate, engage with it, and do it for the proper length of time so that you can have true adaptation so we can see the benefit, which brings us to number 8. This one's good. Injury prevention doesn't exist. You can reduce risk, but injuries are inevitable in high-performance sports. Stop pretending you can eliminate them. So yeah, I think that'd be very true. You're not going to eliminate them. No. We talked about this quite a bit, that the better the athlete as a player, the more exposures they're going to get to injury because they're going to play more, they're going to play more frequently, they're going to play for longer in their career. Yeah. They're definitely going to be exposed significantly more. And at some point, they're at much higher risk than someone who's getting exposed less.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that, it's like, well, how do there's certain sports where money matters less. Gosh, I can't say money doesn't matter, but look at the sports, the most successful sports, and then ask, what is the culture that allows for that success? And I in talk with professionals at the high level, the culture might be many things: to do recovery things every day, to appreciate off-season programming, to manage small injuries well, so small injuries don't become big injuries. And I think when you have like a good culture, that the team can perform well and can perform through the season and it can perform into playoffs and have its team be healthy enough for a season. When you do that well, clearly there is doing something right. When a culture of a coaching staff and team do well year after year after year, that culture is good, regardless if they had the most expensive players out there. And that happens, that we see that, and that happens, and we've understood the culture of those. So to say you can't prevent injuries, you can definitely change culture, which will, I think, improve and make small injuries, keep them small, don't make them big. So, all injuries, like one word, capture everything, that's kind of silly. I think what we're trying to do is reduce severe injuries. Yeah. That's a path, especially the non-contact ones. So I see that as like...
Yeah, it's just word. This is where AI gets funny, right? Because it's like, injury prevention in an absolute form doesn't exist. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. But then it does go on to say that you can reduce risk, which is exactly the concept. We know that the risk is dramatic, as a matter of fact. Yeah. I think especially in female sports, basketball and soccer, or ACL specifically, females like 7 times more likely than a male to tear their ACL. But if they go through a certain battery of exercise with some regularity to it, to plyometric, strength-based routines, they can reduce that to more like 3 times more likely instead of 7, which is a tremendous reduction in risk. Yeah. And it makes an impact. And to your point, we know, especially at the elite levels of sport, the key is to stay on the field. If you can keep a team together and keep a team healthy and keep them on the field, your chances of winning significantly are greater than everyone else. Because if another team has a great player and the player gets hurt, their chance of winning just drops significantly, right? So it's a huge impact. I mean, it's part of the success that when I was training Stephanie as a gold medalist is we went 10 years without having a significant injury. We never missed a practice or a game. in that 10-year period. And I would argue that was because we built a strength foundation. When I saw her, she didn't have one. I saw her because she was hurt. And then we built a strength foundation. And then she learned how to sustain that throughout every off season. And then we were able to do whatever we wanted throughout the entire season. She could fly across the world. She could, lift heavy shit. She could throw heavy things. We could do all kinds of stuff. Didn't phase her because we had a foundation that was built on being solid. We maintained that, and then they kept her healthy as a singular example. But there's many, many more of those situations. All right, this one's a good one. I like this. Is kind of out of the blue and small compared to the other things we've been talking about. Number 9, foam rolling is mostly a placebo.
Yeah, I don't really do it.
Yeah, I think it's done poorly.
Yeah, I know how to make it very painful.
Well, here you go. It feels good, but its actual recovery benefits are minimal. You'd be better focusing on sleep, nutrition, and proper load management.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more with that statement.
Yeah, I think how it says it generally, I couldn't agree more. I think if your heel can't get to your butt and you roll out your quad for like 25 seconds and do an aggressive stretch, the heel might get to the butt. So can it create a reset to have an opening for improved movement? Yeah.
Yes.
But, should do a foam rolling session and roll out every muscle of your body? Yeah.
Just as well, like if you foam roll or you use one of the vibration gun systems, they both feel good. Neither one of them correlate to really any type of performance enhancement improvement with any kind of regularity. But if you used either, I would probably not use the vibration that much, but I would use the foam rolling. If you used it to target a deficit, to your point, you can't get your heel to your butt, so let's target your rectus humerus and your quad. And let's work through that tension, and let's use a foam roll in the appropriate way. So I think these are most misappropriately used, where they get on the foam roll and you just roll back and forth and you roll on it, which is in the name, is actually the wrong use. If you're going to foam roll and actually roll on it, just use it as a scan. Roll up and down the muscle link, scan the tissue. If you find that there's a deficit, like a lot of pain or like a speed bump or like a knot, if you will, some sort of tension in the tissue, then hold pressure on those areas and get the tissue to kind of relax and let go and release. And then you can actually stretch it out and mobilize it. But it has to be done in combination. Just foam rolling by itself really it's not effective.
Yeah.
But this one, I didn't get to the last ones of these myself, so this would be great. So number 10 here is functional training is mostly marketing hype. Now, I totally agree with this with the next statement because it defines it perfectly, but I think it might be a misuse of the understanding of functional training. Standing on a Bosu ball doing circus tricks equals performance enhancement. I could not agree with that more strongly. And this is my soapbox. I've been on it for my entire career. I asked this question when I was in PT school, and I did not get a good answer then. And I know the answer now, and it's just absolute false. Staying on a Dynadisc, staying on a Bosu ball, staying on an unstable surface has been shown to reduce your power output because you're focusing on balance, not power production. That research is strong. So why do we do it? Why are we so obsessed? I mean, other than it's fun and it's challenging. Yeah, it's freaking hard. It doesn't make it good. The second sports are played on Bosu balls, then it's a great idea. But as long as sports are played on the earth and the surface is firm, and you need to plant your foot and then push off it in an aggressive manner at a certain angle, there's no reason to use a Bosu ball.
So we had a Bosu ball in school, and then we were, everyone was kind of learning how to stand on a Bosu ball in school. And I grew up barefoot martial arts every single day of my life, always on a semi-firm surface. Semi-firm because when you hit the ground really hard, you kind of can't have it be like a court. Anyways, training my whole life barefoot on a semi-firm surface, and I get to PT school and like, oh, this is really hard. Look at the Bosu ball, and I stood on it. I did a pistol squat and just stood there like, oh, Russ, you're really good at Bosu ball. Like, no, I have good balance. Period. That's it. How did I get it? By getting barefoot and then just interacting with the ground. I've never been on Bosu ball my entire life.
Yeah.
Never been on an unstable surface like that. But yet I could lock in and then own it because frankly, I had good balance. Like any dancer, like any martial artist, like any gymnast that spends a lot of time with their bare feet. That's how you get good balance, is you get barefoot on a semi-firm surface and then challenge.
Yes.
They all didn't get on a Bosu ball. No, they all had the best balance in the world because they're on a beam and they stand on one leg and they say, "Oh, don't fall off the beam." Yeah, I get
you
you
don't
right.
see gymnastics training on foam or on unstable surfaces. They train on firm surfaces,
Yes.
and they land in foam pits.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. And everything we know about this, like neurology, like if you do a high-level neurology, concussion testing, and all this great stuff, guess what? We put you on foam or an unstable surface because the understanding is that your brain does not value your proprioceptive feedback when you're on unstable surface. It doesn't trust it, so it shuts off the feedback loop. And it relies more on your either vestibular system or on your visual system to control your balance. But yet, you'll see people say the opposite all day long. Oh, go train on foam, go train on a balance, it'll make your balance better. Go train on a Bosu ball to make your balance better. No, it doesn't. And I would sure as shit not call that functional training. It's dysfunctional training.
Yeah, well, that's
functional training would be putting your foot on the ground and actually generating force. I don't care what direction you put it in, that's functional. But you put it on a Bosu, that's dysfunctional because there's no Bosu in the real world.
Well, yeah, I think that should be the real definition of a functional training. It should really mimic the real world activity. For instance, like I think a common exercise that's becoming more popular these days is a Zercher squat.
Yeah.
And a Zercher squat, even though I hate how it feels in my arms, I get the idea. It feels like you have something really heavy in your arms and you're kind of like buckled in this position and you have to like really compress and tighten up your stomach. I'm like, oh, I get this. I'd frankly rather just be like a double racked, kettlebell squat because I don't have to like have these sores on my elbows.
Right, but it's real world.
But it's a real world. It feels like, if I had a log, that's how I would squat a log.
Yeah.
Or frankly, pick it up and lift it.
Yeah, if you had to
like,
if you had to pick up something heavy from the ground, what would you do? You'd probably deadlift it.
Yeah.
And you'd put it into like either a goblet squat position or a Zercher position, and then you'd squat and stand with it. And then you would walk and carry it.
Yes. Yeah.
So any exercise that looks like that, like a deadlift, a hinge, a front squat, a goblet squat, a Zercher squat, or a carry, makes a shit ton of sense.
But instead I'm seeing this one where you rotate with one hand and then you switch it and then you rotate another. As if you're like pulling a lawnmower and then throwing a spear all in the same motion. I'm like, what function is that? Like it's trying to think of like fancy
advanced
slingshot, like you grabbed the spear out of the animal and then took it and then hit the other animal behind you. I'm like, what are we doing here?
That's the future when you're mowing your lawn and you're at war at the same time. But your robot will be mowing your lawn, so that won't really happen.
For
Just
sure.
press go and GPS tracking, and it's like gonna be like the little robot vacuuming the house. Okay, number 11. This one I love. Nutrition is simpler than the industry wants you to believe.
Oh, yeah.
1,000%.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need a complicated diet or expensive supplements.
Yeah, I feel sorry for nutritionists in that, I love the pursuit of higher level nutrition. I love people pursuing that and wanting to better people's lives. But unfortunately, the answers are pretty simple, that most people need.
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the things, the thing that's going on right now, everybody's taking these GLP-1s, right? And they're just dropping ridiculous amounts of weight with the GLP-1s, what my understanding of the way that some of them are working, most of them are working, the process is they slow down your digestive system. So you feel, not only do you not feel hungry, but actually food kind of doesn't seem enticing to you because by eating you feel worse.
It kills the desire. For food.
Yeah. So when you take that away, all of a sudden people drop,
a lot of weight.
You name it.
You strip the desire.
10, 30, 40 pounds. Like
it's fascinating.
So I think the problem is that the unawareness that people have of how much food they put in their body. And I do think that we not only overeat like in a setting, but I think we overindulge in food as a population. I'm not the guy to talk about this because I do everything I can to avoid that situation. I try not to like food. I don't like food. I try not to like going out to dinner.
The other day,
if I enjoy that, if I have a passion for doing that, then I'm going to get fat. It's pretty obvious.
The other day I did a fast because it was opportunistic. We had like an early morning meeting. I didn't have any time for it. I treated all throughout lunch, so I didn't have anything until, whenever. I was like, oh, this is a lot easier to live. Like when you just don't have to think about it. I don't have anything. I'm good to go. Fasting for a day was actually very easy.
That's because you mentally...
Yeah, I got stuff to do.
Aren't focused on it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, give me one more here.
Okay, this is the last one. Perfect timing. Number 12. More recovery tools does not equal better recovery.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So compression boots, ice band, massage guns.
A lot of people are gearheads, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of us are gearheads. We like gear. We like to, hey, I'm going to do this at a high level. I'm going to buy everything I can to do it. Yeah, it's, yeah.
I think you have to find out what works for you though. So I think that when you think about recovery, like you do have to do something, you have to find something that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And just like everything else in life, like what's your thing? Like, do you like, is the sauna your thing? You know, is a cold tub your thing? I mean, I have people that do the cold tub and it's a life changing for them, you know, and I like hate cold water, but it is an amazing sensation, but I just couldn't do it. Like I'd have so much stress about getting in the damn thing that it just wouldn't be worth.
I know it wouldn't be enjoyable for me.
But I know people that have been in pain and have a lot of inflammation in their body and they correct. And they do the cold plunge and it's just like, whoa, like it just flushes them. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And other people who find the relief in the sauna, which I think would be more of my area. Like I like being warm. And it's just relaxing and then it's peaceful. Yeah. You name it, you know? Yeah. You can recover. I think that meditation is probably the strongest tool if you have the ability to do it and the mindset where you could block other things out, shut things down. You just basically have to get your nervous system to go from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state and be able to change that tone. If you can do that, then you can essentially sleep. Yeah. Which is the recipe.
Well, I think the secret to that post is it's not in the gear, it's not in the tool, it's in the recovery activity. I worked with a middle linebacker for the 49ers, and he's also with the Seahawks for a while. And he played 7 years without a single injury as a middle linebacker. And I asked him flat out upon the eval, I asked him, like, how do you do that? Tell me your secret for surviving 7 years in the league in a position that gets the most tackles out of anyone else on the team. How do you do that? And he said, I learned this trick up in Seattle to do a recovery thing every day. I said, please tell me the things. He's like, well, I'd either go for a swim, I'd do a yoga session, I'd go to physical therapy like I'm doing with you. I'd get some sunlight and go for like a long walk. So it's usually one of those 4. And sometimes it'd be a stretch session, but honestly, like when we do a PT thing, it usually ends up being a bit of a stretch session where I open up my body in all these ways. So I would do one of those 4 every day. Like now that's elite level recovery. It was an activity rather than a thing.
100%. Yeah. And if the thing gets you to do it, then it's a good thing. Yeah. Yeah. But you would definitely not get there by using a massage gun or like, I think the Normatec boots are cool. I think they feel good. And if it feels good to you and you can lay there 15 to 20 minutes and meditate while you're in them, then more power to you. Yeah. But I haven't met an athlete yet that's in the boots for 15, 20 minutes and then pops up and is ready to go. That hasn't happened yet. Like the boots aren't the magic sauce. They're cool and they might feel great, but you have to kind of get to the mental change and actually get to a recovery state, which is more of an internal process. But if the tool helps you get there, more power to it. But don't go chasing tools around. Perfect. It's such a waste of money and time. Oh, well, that was fun. Thanks for participating.
That was great.
It may have even been better if it had been like if the robot was talking to you and you could have just like asked it more questions. To dive deeper right there.
I thought I did a good job though. I mean, for most of them,
you definitely see like the context of like the words versus like what's defined that word. Yeah, like functional training, right? Yeah, interesting. All right, thanks for listening to KIMEcast. Look forward to connecting with you guys. We'll see you in the next round.